Welcome to the John freaking Muir Pod. Lace up those boots and sling on the pack for a romp through trails, short and long. With your host and Renaissance man, Doc. It's time to embrace the suck.
Welcome back to another week on the trail, dirtbags, and hiker trash. I'm Doc, and this is the John freaking Muir Pod. Let's start off with a reminder. If you are enjoying the podcast, take just a minute, help us out, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. And if you're not enjoying the pod, well, just go ahead and keep that to yourself. Well, constant listeners, we are all in for a big treat this week as one of my favorite guests makes a return visit to the studio for the fourth time to spend some time and spin some yarns. Welcome back to the John freaking Muir Pod, Ben Vaughan. How's it going, Ben?
Good, Doc. Great to meet you, or great to see you again. It's been a little while. We've been doing a little dance, trying to get this podcast done, and finally got a little time off. So thought this would be a great opportunity.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we are, just to give people a perspective on how long we've been trying to get this together. I had you scheduled for season 4, episode 10, and right now we are recording season 5, episode 23.
Oh, so wow. Well, you've been busy then.
It's been a little bit of time, but I knew we would eventually connect. You've always come through in the end for us, so it's really good to see you again, and I'm really looking forward to this episode.
Me too.
Is this your fourth time? I was trying to think about the times that we talked. We talked about your Triple Crown. That was the first time. Then we met in person, I believe, in Southern California to talk about the Hayduke, and then we had you on again with Scrapbook.
That's
to
right.
Talk about the long trail in Vermont.
Yep. So this
was there another one, or was that it?
No, that's it. That covers all of it.
Okay. So you officially tied Jeff Garmire now as the most frequent guest on the podcast.
I mean, he's a legend, so I feel humbled by that.
It's good company to be in there, Ginger
Yes,
Balls.
it is.
Yeah.
I've yet to meet him though.
Okay. Well, maybe
when I did Superior Hiking Trail, he was trying to do the FKT on that. So I finished and I went down to a trail crossing where I thought he was going to be at. And then he had gotten injured or something and didn't make it that far. So I just missed meeting him in person.
Got it. You know, he recently had a new documentary released about him by Jason Fitzpatrick. He was the guy behind Mile and a Half.
Yeah.
The documentary about the John Muir Trail. He did a documentary with Jeff Garmire on his FKT of the Colorado Trail. So that is just out. I know that he is kind of doing a barnstorming tour around the country with having it released out into different parts of the country.
Well, if he comes up to Alaska, maybe I'll get a chance to meet him in person.
Okay. I'll let him know.
All right. Sounds good.
And I referred to you as Ginger Balls a little bit earlier, and that is your trail name, obviously. And
correct. Actually, you called me Ben on the introduction, but now we can go back to our trail names.
That's right. Back to the trail names, Ginger Balls. And right now I'm looking at your, all right. Hey, Ginger Balls, just remind us again, how did you come up with, how'd you get stuck with the moniker of Ginger Balls?
Oh, it was way back, first trail hike back in 2018 on the AT, young new hiker, hiking with, a modified trail family that was starting to fill itself out. And I was the old guy. And I don't know, I was always kind of the ballsy one to say, hey, I'm going to go a little extra, or I'm going to be the first one up this, or jump off a waterfall in Pennsylvania. So, I'm a Ginge. So it just kind of fit, I guess.
Okay.
There's probably another sophomore version of that, but I'll leave that one out. Make this family friendly.
And what is your preferred version of the shortened trail name? Is it Ginger? Is it Ballz?
No.
Is it
a lot of people call me Jeebs. Yeah.
Jeebs. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'll refer to you as Ginger Balls or Jeebs, and I can't promise, but I think I have a tendency to call you Balls as well.
Yeah.
So.
All right. I'll take that. But
Okay.
I think Jeebs came from one of your previous guests on the PCT, Little Skittle. I think that's where Jeebs started becoming more common.
Okay. Yeah, it was probably more appropriate for her to call you Jeebs than
exactly
the full name. Got it. That makes sense. All right. Hey, you've been on a number of times. So this is actually more for the listeners, first-time listeners out there. We have a segment towards the end of the episode called the Pro Tip Insight of the Week. And that's where I will turn to Ginger Ballz and ask him to share with us some trail wisdom to make our listeners' next outdoor experience even better. So be on the lookout for that. That'll come towards the end of the episode. But right now, let's talk about gear. And you know what? We're gonna customize this, because I know, you're a triple crowner. You've done a lot of things out on the trails, but I also know that the last couple of years you've spent a lot of time behind a dog sled or on a dog sled up in Alaska. And we're going to talk a lot about that. I'm looking forward to the stories. So we're going to customize this a little bit.
Sounds good. Must Bring Gear Review.
So this is the Must Bring Gear Review, sponsored by the ultralight backpacking gear company 6 Moon Designs. And here's how it typically works. If you were to let a stranger pack your bag with pretty much generic gear for a multi-day hike, we're going to change that to a multi-day excursion, which can encompass a dog sled excursion. What is the one specific piece of gear you would insist on being packed? And if you've got a particular brand for that for specific piece of gear, even better. So Ginger Ballz, what is your must-bring piece of gear out there in Alaska?
Well, as you guys know, previous listeners may know, or anybody that knows me, that I suffered some pretty severe frostbite on the PCT. So that's one of the struggles I've had up in Alaska. So, gloves, multiple layers of gloves over mittens, and really good boots and good wool socks.
So you got to keep the extremities very, very warm. Your hands and your feet.
Nothing else really bothers me except for my fingers and toes.
Mm-hmm. Those appendages are the most at risk for frostbite, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. And what are some of the temperatures you're dealing with or have dealt with up in Alaska?
Well, it's still pretty early in the winter, and this is my first winter in Alaska, so I know it's going to drop down -50, -40. So far, I've only seen -30, only -30. But being outside, whether it's working or dog mushing in -30. If you're not prepared, if you're not ready, you can get frostbite within minutes. So I've definitely paid attention to the layers on my feet and the layers on my fingers, my hands.
Right. In the absence of a thermometer, is there a way for your body to tell just exactly how cold it is? I mean, what does -30 feel like?
Well, my beard frosts up within 15 minutes. Once I get a full face of ice, I'm like, okay, it's definitely below zero. But we do have thermometers, and we're paying attention to that. But yeah, -30 is the worst I've seen so far, but I'm expecting it to get a little bit worse.
Yeah, as we were exchanging text messages trying to coordinate this over the last, I don't know how many months, you sent me a picture of yourself, or I think we were on a video call. We were on a FaceTime call.
We were on a FaceTime call.
We were out on the sled, and I took a screenshot because you had an incredible look to you with was it a snot rocket kind of?
It was two of them coming down. My beard was covered. So I FaceTimed my daughter on that same mush. I was on a really flat part where I was comfortable to actually pull my phone out and call some people. And she also screenshotted it, and she's using that against me. So feel free to share that. It's already out there somewhere. I think I might have even posted her screenshot of me.
Nice. Your daughter and I were on the same wavelength. Tell her I give her a big thumbs up.
All right, we'll do.
All right.
It's the hiking poll.
Hey, Jeebs, I know in the past we've done the hiking poll where I've kind of asked you 7 questions about hiking equipment, hiking related kind of questions to see which side of the issue you fall on. And I give you a score on a scale of 1 to 100 on the sanity scale, just to see how crazy you really are. I think I'm going to amend this because we've already been through this a couple of times. I have a second set of questions that are really devoted to some of the big topics facing society today.
Okay.
And it's a fun little game to play. See which side of these issues you fall on, and
oh boy,
we'll give you a score. If I were to ask your daughter to give you a score on a scale from 1 to 100, with 100 being completely sane and 1 being completely insane, where would you fall on that?
Probably a 20.
20, about 20.
Yeah, about 20. It'd be more toward the insane part, yes.
Okay, definitely.
When I called her and said I was going to Alaska to be a dog musher, she said, "Of course you are." So, yeah.
She was not surprised.
Not at all.
Okay. All right. Hey, we'll start off with an easy one here. Question number 1. Do you sleep with your socks on or off?
In Alaska, I sleep with them on.
That makes sense. That's really easy right there. You're right now. You're 100. You're completely sane.
Okay.
So no worries. No point lost.
You got to be ready for anything. So yeah,
that's right. All right. Question number 2: does pineapple belong on pizza?
Never.
Oh, no hesitation on that.
Never.
You have a firm opinion on that.
I love pineapple, but no. So maybe I'm still at 100 on this poll.
I don't know. I'm taking notes. Here we go.
All right. We'll see.
What is the problem with pineapple on pizza?
I don't know. It just doesn't belong.
Yeah. You wouldn't put an orange on pizza, so why would you put pineapple, right?
Or strawberry.
Fruit, strawberry.
Can you imagine putting a strawberry on pizza? Who would do that?
I cannot. That's a fair point. All right. Hey, up there in Alaska, question number 3, do you roll your toilet paper over or under?
Always over. Only psychos go under.
If you go to somebody's bathroom, if you're over at a friend's house or at a party somewhere, you go in the bathroom and it's rolled under, that is a troubling sign that you may be in the house of a sociopath.
Well, I always change it if it's that way.
Oh, you take a stand.
I do. If I go in a bathroom and it's the wrong way, I correct it and put it over.
Do you tell them when you come out, or you just let them discover that on their own?
I don't even think they notice. It's probably just somebody just putting a roll of toilet paper on, not paying attention to detail. Like they don't even think about it. That's the way I look at it.
Right. Okay.
I think there's 2 types of people: people that put it on and don't think about it, and people that are like, no, it needs to go over.
And you obviously fall in the latter category. Why does it have to go over?
It just makes sense. It makes sense to me. I bet it comes from my military background. I bet it was beaten in my head at a very young age to do it that way. Yeah.
Okay. My dad used to tell me a story about toilet paper in the military. He was in the Marines, and he said that the Marines had a solution whenever there was a supply shortage, especially with toilet paper, that they were allocated 1 square of toilet paper per day.
Oh, I know how to use 1 square of toilet paper.
Yeah, you take it and you fold it in half one way, you fold it in half the other way, so it's now a square, and then you tear off the corner of it, right? And you put that corner aside. Now, if you open up that that square of toilet paper, there's a hole in the center of it. And you would put your middle finger through the center of that hole. You would wipe yourself, and then you'd wipe off your finger with the single square of toilet paper. And then you would get that little corner that you had torn off and set aside previous, and you use that to clean underneath your nail. That's right.
Yeah,
exactly. 100%. I always thought he was blowing smoke on that one, but you've now confirmed that.
I'm not crazy enough to do that now because I have plenty of toilet paper. However, in an emergency, I have that in my wheelhouse.
That's right. During the beginning of the pandemic, when you had all of the crisis of the panic about the toilet paper being gone from the stores, I told my family, don't worry, I've got a solution for you. It's going to be okay.
Well, fortunate for me, during the pandemic, I hiked 4,000 miles, so I didn't have to worry about. I was like, what pandemic? I did half of the AT, got up to Harper's Ferry, and then I went and did the CDT. So I kind of missed all that hysteria.
Lucky for you.
Yep.
All right. Back to the poll. Question number 4. Is a hot dog a sandwich?
No.
What is the qualifying criteria for a sandwich?
Well, I know the argument's going to be 2 pieces of bread with some meat in the middle, but no, it's a hot dog. It's singular. Then, like, if you go to a restaurant, like, hey, let me see your sandwich menu. Hot dog's not going to be listed under that. There's going to be like burgers and dogs. Like, is a hamburger a sandwich? It's a hamburger.
It has all the characteristics, doesn't it?
I agree. I see the argument both sides, but I would say no, it's a hot dog, it's a hamburger, and then you have sandwiches.
Okay. So is a hoagie a sandwich?
Yeah.
Is a Philly steak, is that a sandwich?
I see where you're going with this, but I'd call a Philly cheesesteak a sandwich. Yeah.
Okay. So when does it depart from just being a sandwich to something other than a sandwich, even though it has the same ingredients?
When it's 2 slices of bread, meat, cheese, veggies, whatever, and mustard. That should be one of your questions. Mustard or mayonnaise? Only psychos eat mayonnaise. I'm very hard on that one.
On your hot dog?
No, on anything. On anything. But especially a hot dog, yes.
Yeah. Well, here's a corollary. On your hot dog, is it ketchup or is it mustard?
Mustard, 100%.
100%. Onions,
Yeah.
relish?
I do onions, no relish.
Okay. We differ slightly on this. I go ketchup and onions on my hot dogs. That's the best.
See, you're sliding down that scale.
Oh, hey, I'm the guy with the scale. You don't. I'm grading you. I'm the host.
If you put mayonnaise on your hot dog, I'd say you're a complete psycho.
Oh no. Anybody putting mayonnaise on their hot dog is just, you're on some watch list somewhere.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Question number 5: Netflix or YouTube?
Netflix, so you don't have commercials.
Oh, does YouTube have commercials?
Yeah, if you don't pay like
they
the
do,
extra fee. It's like every time you watch it, you get 5 minutes in, it's some political ad or some random thing. You can skip it after 5 seconds, but yeah Netflix, because no commercials.
Yeah, there's some pretty wild content on YouTube, though. I mean, any kind of user-generated content always seems, you take a wrong turn sometimes.
Well, I definitely have my YouTube time, and I go down these rabbit holes, but I try. The commercials frustrate me too much, so yeah.
Okay. Best thing you've watched on Netflix recently?
Oh, what is it? It's Terminal List.
Oh, that was good.
Yeah, really good. But I mean, I come from that, not that background, but you know, it speaks to me. So
right. Yeah, I
find it interesting. Yeah.
That was good. I saw The Recruit recently. That was pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's about an attorney fresh out of one of the academies who he joins up with the CIA and finds himself in some pretty ridiculous situations. So pretty action packed.
All right. I'll have to take a look at that.
Check it out. How about content on YouTube? Any favorite channels out there?
Let's see. I go down rabbit holes on something I'm interested in. So it might be dog mushing, obviously the hiking stuff. I just bought a split board, so I went down rabbit hole on split board, setup, how you use it, try to save me some pain of being a noob. First time I went up on the split board, I didn't do that. And I felt like I was the newest guy on the mountain. I was like, this can't be this. I was making it way more difficult than it is. So I immediately went home, went down that rabbit hole on split boarding, and I was like, oh. And even I think it was the CEO of Burton or Jones said, here's the top 10 mistakes I made. And I made every single one of them because it's counterintuitive coming from a snowboarding background.
Yeah, you could become an expert in anything if you watch enough YouTube. I mean, all kinds of how-tos on YouTube.
Oh, yeah. I try to stay away from any social issues and just use it for education.
Yeah, good. That's a good strategy. All right, question number 6. What would be your most useful skill in the case of a zombie apocalypse?
How to use a weapon.
Yeah.
But I don't know what that's going to do against a zombie. So, I don't know. I can run really fast, and those guys don't run fast. That would be my personal skill, not for a group, but personally, I could just run away from the situation for long distances.
Yeah, the group, that might not be a good group skill because
it's not
they'd be left on their own.
Exactly. It's like, if a shark's going to attack you, there's a bunch of people in the water. You have to be the fastest swimmer. So kind of similar in that aspect.
You don't have to be the fastest swimmer. You just have to be faster than the slowest swimmer.
There you go.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they'd be saying, "Oh, here come the zombies! Somebody go get ginger balls. Hey, we're gonna take a stand here." And he's gone. He's gone. He is in the distance. Forget.
I can just hike fast. I wouldn't have to run.
That's right. Okay. And question number 7. This is a long question, so bear with me. Would you rather always live 10 miles from where you were born, or never be able to settle down in one place for more than a year?
Oh, anybody knows me, like never be able to settle down for more than in one place for more than a year. Definitely. Like I rarely go to where I was born, and I've lived, I don't know, I think 7 or 8 states, quite a few in the past 5 years. So yeah, I definitely go with B.
That makes a lot of sense. You're always on the go.
Always looking for new opportunities.
That's right. That's right. All right. Sit tight while I do some math here. We've got to put this through the John Freaking Muir algorithm.
All right.
I got to carry the 3. We're going to divide by √2, multiply by pi. And then I've got to adjust for what happens to a beard at -30 in Alaska.
Oh, yeah.
And you know what? You come out very sane in this poll. I got you to 63.
Okay. All right. I'll take that.
Yeah.
There might be some people that argue that, but I'll take it.
Okay. All right. Good job. Good job. Tell your daughter that you're not as crazy as she thinks you are.
She spent more time with me though, so
That's true. This is just 7 questions. That's
Exactly.
probably not representative of the true score.
exactly.
Okay. Hey, for the benefit of our listeners who may not have heard the prior 3 episodes involving you, can you give us a thumbnail sketch of just your background, where you grew up, and how you got involved in the outdoors?
Yep. Grew up in Midland, Texas. Desert, not a whole lot to do out there. Enlisted in the Navy when I was 18. Did 22 years, retired as lieutenant commander, and then did some contracting work for the government for a while. And then in 2018, hiked the Appalachian Trail and totally ruined my life for the better, as everybody likes to say. And then alternated hiking every summer and being a ski bum in Colorado, teaching ski and snowboard lessons. And so I did the AT in 2018, PCT in 2019, CDT, half of the AT and CDT in 2020. 21, I did the Hayduke, Superior Hiking Trail, and Vermont's Long Trail. And then since then, I've been kind of shifted my focus to working in Alaska, and we can talk more about that. So I haven't done a lot of hiking. I did do rim to rim to rim with my daughter back in October, which was pretty cool. Short stint, but pretty aggressive hiking. Did a lot of miles there. But yeah, I haven't done a through hike since 21. Yeah.
And you say change for the better. I know that when you were in the Navy, that you kind of got this. I don't know if you read a book. I think it was a book that you read, and kind of got the whole concept of through hiking kind of put into your brain there, and you festered on it and thought about it. And there's a number of years that went by before you were actually able to do it.
Yeah, actually, the story is I was with a friend, and we were out hiking in like 2 or 3 days of day hikes up in New Hampshire. So we're up in the Whites, and one day, I thought it was crazy. We're doing 10 miles a day, and we get to the top of one of the ridges, and these dirty hikers came by, just smelled awful, and we all sat down for lunch, and it's like, so how far are you guys going? And they're like, to Maine. And I was like, no, seriously, what are you doing? They're like, well, we started in Georgia, we're going to Maine. And I think I'd read about the Appalachian Trail, but it never really, set in. And so from that moment on, I was like, I cannot believe people do this. And I thought about it for probably 10 years till I had the opportunity to do it. And I think that's the biggest thing. People just don't have the opportunity. Even if you know about it, you got to leave friends, family, jobs, put your whole life on hold. And it's hard to find that time and that opportunity to do it. And I came to a point in my life, I had the opportunity. I said, well, I'm going to go do it. So.
Yeah, it's a big commitment, big time commitment.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you had another question.
And so you say you were changed. You say changed for the better?
Yeah, I would say so. I think since that first through hike, I'm not chasing the dollars. I'm now chasing adventures and life experiences, and I think that's made me better. And definitely my quality of life is much better now. Yeah, mm-hmm. I'm not chasing things. I'm chasing memories and adventures.
Yeah, and I'm especially tickled by your friendship with other thru hikers out there, especially Scrapbook.
Oh yeah, Scrappy's a great dude. He actually came to Alaska last year. Met him up there. He was doing some hiking with some friends of his when he did the CDT, and I just met him out for a beer. They were on some adventure, and so we met at some brew pub that was near where I was living at the time. And so it was good to catch up with him. I'm trying to get him to come up to Alaska. He doesn't know that yet, but it's just through text now, and I'm waiting on a phone call back. But I'm trying to convince that kid to come up and work with me in Alaska.
Now, when we talked in, I think it was Playa del Vista in Southern California in person, you were telling me about a job opportunity that you had that you were really looking forward to as a whitewater rafting instructor, and you got turned down.
I did.
Lo and behold, they talked to you, they interviewed you, they thought about it, and they said, yeah, you're not the right guy. And of course, you were disappointed with this news, as anybody might be. But if not for that, we might be having a very different conversation right now.
100%. And I'll back up. I don't know why you're bringing up all these hurtful memories of being turned down for a job I knew I could do very well. But yeah, I just had it in my mind, next step in life, I want to be a whitewater raft guide, eventually get to the Grand Canyon and raft down there. And I'd still like to do that, just not with the company I'm not going to name. But I applied, and they kind of called back, and they were kind of laughing like, hey, you're way overqualified for this. And, we usually hire kids right out of college or out of high school. And I was like, yeah, I get it. I just want to, go through the training, get the gear, use this as a stepping stone, kind of like an entry level job. I'll pick up trash if I have to the first month or, until you get me on a boat. And then they sent me a text. Oh, no, they left me a voicemail and said, hey, you're, I think the exact words were, you're not the typical person we hire, which I took meaning I'm old and I couldn't hang. And I was like, all right, well, so I left and went and hiked the Hayduke. So I'll show them. I'll go do the hardest trail in America. So, and then that summer I was hiking another trail and I got the text, hey, do you want to be a dirty dog musher in Alaska on a remote glacier? And I was like, let's go. So if I had gone on that whitewater raft adventure, yes, I wouldn't be sitting where I'm at right now.
Incredible. I don't know how anybody turns you down. It's just a note for any adventure outfitters listening into this podcast. If Ginger Ballz ever applies for any position in your organization, snap him up quick.
Well, I'm glad they didn't, but I'm still a little butthurt by that, but I'm getting over it until you just brought it up. I hadn't thought about it in a long time, but
I'm sorry to bring up these sensitive topics, but that's what we do here at the podcast.
No worries. No worries.
All right. And speaking of the Hayduke, that was a favorite memory, sitting with you in that park and talking about your experience in the Hayduke and some of the crazy stuff that went on in the Hayduke. That was just a wild experience. Yeah, it is. And I tell you, that's a trail that I definitely need to go back and attack again. Just the rawness of it, the challenges, the difficulty. So I've never been so remote in my life. And every day, like, you can really mess up, and might take somebody longer than you want to come get you if you get injured out there. Yeah. And listeners, we are talking to a triple crowner, and he just said that doing the Hayduke, he was in some of the most remote places he's ever been. So that kind of gives you a clue into what the Hayduke is all about. How does the Hayduke differ from a traditional American hiking trail? All the trails that I've done, I guess 5, the Hayduke, there's no signage, there's no trails, there's no campsites, there's no shelters like on the AT. You're just out there, and it's, southern Utah, so it's super remote. A lot of sun. You either have a lot of water or you have no water. There's really not in between. Every day is different. You might walk 25 miles through the Escalante River in knee-deep water, which is a challenge, but you have all the water you want. And then as soon as you leave that, you might not have water for 2 days, or it's going to be water that you really don't want to drink until you have to. You can filter it through, a sock, and then your Sawyer or whatever you use, and you're still going to get dirt brown water. It tastes like dirt brown water. Especially if it's been through your sock. Well, exactly. Well, I always use clean socks for that one. I always keep a clean pair of socks. That's a pro tip right there. There you go.
Always keep, or, a bandana works as well. This might be a little more salty.
Okay. And the moment that stands out for me was the story you told where you became a tree hugger. Do you remember that story? Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do. So on the Hayduke, you're walking through all these canyons, and they're basically washes, and you'll come to a wash, and it might be 4 feet down, or it could be 20 feet, 30 feet. There's one on there that's 100 feet that just seems impossible when you get there, but there's a route that you eventually find. But I came to one that was like 30. No, it was only like 12 feet, but there's all these boulders at the bottom. And I was like, well, if I jump down, I'm going to break my ankle. And I'd already threw my pack down there, or lowered my pack. So now I'm like, well, that was dumb. I don't have my GPS. I don't have my Garmin. I don't have my phone. So for about an hour and a half, I walked around trying to find a way to get down. And eventually I was like, I only see one option. There's always options. You're just trying to find the best option, the least dangerous option. And so there's a tree probably 5 feet away from this cliff that went right down to the canyon. It's probably, 8 inches around. So I just took a leap of faith and grabbed onto it. And as I did, it bent over, and I was like, bad idea. But then it slowly came up, and I just slid down. But I had scratches all down my legs and arms, and walked back and got my pack, and like, all right, what's going to happen next? So, yeah.
I've talked to probably 240, 250 people and heard all kinds of stories. That has to rank in the top 3. That particular moment of you making that leap. I can see you on the edge of the canyon, making that leap onto that tree to get down to the bottom. I mean, what a moment. That just gives me chills when I hear about it.
The thing about that is, like, in retrospect, the actual leap wasn't that far. But if things went bad where I was located, like, it would have taken a heroic effort to get me out of there if I had injured myself. So that's what I was thinking. Like, if this goes wrong, if this goes right, it's no big deal. If it goes wrong, it's a huge deal. And that's kind of what the Hayduke is. Every decision you make can really alter your plans. So anybody out there that's going to go do the Hayduke, be safe, choose the right routes. There's always a way out. It may take you 6 hours to find it, but there's always a way out. Take your time.
Anybody who's prepping for that extreme adventure, what would be a good resource for them to check out?
It's pretty limited. There is a book by the guy that created it. I can't remember his name, but that book's not the best resource. Skirkle has some good resources. He's got a whole data sheet that you can get, but it's all on paper. And then there is a GPS track that will help you out. But I tell you what, a lot of it was just maps and compass, and then GPS. And you just got to combine a lot of skill sets to navigate that trail, because you'll think you're on the trail and you're 20 feet off, but 300 feet above it. And if you just keep going, you got to come all the way back till you find that point where you get in that canyon.
Yeah, there's actually a documentary called Figuring It Out on the Hayduke, and there was a moment in that documentary where they realized they had gone down the wrong canyon and had to go back, 6-7 miles to get back on course.
So I watched that documentary probably 20, 30 times before I did it. I'm like, I'm not going to make any of those mistakes, and I probably made 75% of those mistakes, including that last one, that's Fat Man's Misery. If anybody's watched that documentary, you know what I'm talking about. And I was like, I know where this is. I got it. And it took me 3 hours to figure out how to get out of that canyon. It was so simple once you found it. But when you're looking around, it doesn't make sense. You're not getting a good GPS signal in there, so that's not going to help you. And I kept going the wrong way and climbing up. And I'm like, this isn't it. And then once I found it, I was like, that was so easy. But in the moment, it's just not.
Fat Man's Misery. Love it.
Yeah. So if I do that trail again, I will walk up to that point and I'll be like, nope, it's right here. Follow me. And if I'm with someone, they're like, no, that's not it. I'm like, just trust me. You go around just these bushes and then it's there. I think that's the hard part. That particular part of the trail is hidden by bushes. So it just doesn't make sense. And you see where people have gone up, lost here and over here, and down a river canyon. And, the problem with that river canyon is it's nice, easy walking, and knee deep, thigh deep water, calf deep water. but then you got to come back when you realize you're lost. You're going against the current. So the deeper the water is, the more difficult it is walking against that current.
Well, that just goes to show that experience is the best teacher. I mean, you've been through it once or twice, and now you know.
Well, I would love to lead people who've never done that. If I ever do it again, I'd love to take people who've never done the Hayduke, and I think I could. I mean, I'm still going to make mistakes, but I'm not going to make all the same mistakes I did. I'll be like, no, I know how to. This particular problem, I know I got this one. Yeah.
Well, Lieutenant Commander Ballz, let me know when you become a Hayduke guide, and I'll sign on for that expedition. 100%.
All right. I think, I did it in about 7.5 weeks, solo. So I was pretty aggressive. I was hiking a lot every day. Nobody's holding me back as far as, I want to go to town, or I need to get a package, or my shoes just arrived here. We got to go. That type of stuff slows you down a little bit. But yeah, it was just me. So I just focused on that, and I had all my packages, in good spots, and probably only took 1, maybe 2 zeros the whole time. So yeah.
Okay. Hey, before we get to break, let's take us through how you ended up from there, and how you went from there and ended up in Alaska as a dog musher.
Yeah. So in 21, my plan was to do the Hayduke, and then Pacific Northwest Trail, and then maybe hang out in Zion or somewhere for a little bit before I went back to work, and did the Hayduke, and then I had all my packages mailed for the Pacific Northwest Trail, and then I got a text and said, because I knew someone that was doing this job, and they had fired somebody, they needed somebody else, but they're like, hey, I know somebody, and I sat on that text for about an hour. At first I said no, I have plans, and an hour later I was like, tell me more. And I think an hour later, I talked to the owner and was like, hey, I've never done this. And he said, I'll train you. And the owner is Dallas Seavey, which doesn't ring a bell for most people in the lower 48. But anybody that's in a dog musher knows he's the most accomplished dog musher of all time. So I Googled him. And then when, the best in the world says they'll train you, you don't pass it up. Like if Tiger Woods said, hey, I'll teach you to putt, are you going to turn that down? You're not going to turn it down. So I went in completely green, never been to Alaska, never been to a glacier, never mushed dogs. And, now I'm training dogs for Iditarod.
Yeah. If the best in the world says, hey, I'll guide you on a Hayduke trail, sign up for that.
Well, I'm not going to say I'm the best in the world guiding Hayduke, but I've done it once, and I won't make the same mistakes. So I can think of a couple names, big names that I would say are pretty prominent in that area of the country on leading hikes.
Yeah, I'm going to ask this question. I don't know the answer. Are there people out there that have done the Hayduke multiple times?
I don't know. You don't hear much about that. The Hayduke community is very small. Maybe 10 to 20 do it a year. I think it's gaining in popularity. The Netflix documentary definitely helped that out. That's how I found out about it. A friend texted it to me. He's like, dude, you should do this. And I looked at it. I was like, that's crazy. But I sat on it for a while, and I was like, let's go, always up for a challenge. But yeah, there are some people that have done it multiple times. The community is not the same as the AT or PCT, CDT. It's a little different.
Right.
But I have seen people on social media that are prepping for it now and asking questions. So I'm always answering them or just giving them advice like, hey, don't hurt yourself out there. Cause, it's not the same as just a regular through hike that's marked and has shelters.
Right. Do you see their posts on social media just in general, or are they actually asking you questions? Do you get people reaching out to you to find out?
No, they're not. It's like I follow a Hayduke Facebook page or, something, or maybe a hashtag on Instagram, and somebody will just, post something. So I that's generally how I see it. But if any of your listeners have any questions on it, I'd feel free to share any information I have. Okay. It is an amazing, challenging trail.
Mm-hmm. And how do you escape quicksand?
You don't. Wait a minute. I know I have a story here.
There was I don't know, a book you read, and it said, or maybe it was instructions somewhere. There's a warning about how to escape quicksand. You do it very, very slowly.
Yeah, very slowly. But so the USGS maps in that area have warnings that there's quicksand around here. So every time I stepped in mud and I went below my ankle, I immediately freaked out like I stepped in quicksand. I never saw quicksand, but it was definitely in my head like, oh, this is real. Like, I mean, the government's printed on their maps. So, be careful about that if anybody's going to hike the Hayduke. Might run into quicksand.
Yeah, my only experience with quicksand is the episodes of the Three Stooges that incorporated quicksand.
Right. That's probably where
that's all I know.
Yeah. Yep.
And I know some of our listeners are out there going, "What are the Three Stooges?" Man,
that's because you're old, Doc.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Hey, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to hear from our sponsors. We're going to come back and hear about some adventures up in Alaska, doing some dog mushing. So stay tuned for that. We'll be right back. And welcome back. We are talking to Lieutenant Commander Ben Vaughan, also known as Ginger Ballz or Jeebs. And we heard about some of his prior adventures out on various trails. But let's get to really the heart of the matter for this episode, and that is your time up in Alaska. So you've talked to Dallas Seavey, best in the business. You take him up on his offer to be trained as a dog musher. How do you get up to Alaska? How do you get up to where his whole organization is, and what happens? I mean, what are you expecting, and what is the reality up there?
Well, I had I didn't know what to expect. I had 2 bags, dug out all my winter hiking gear. So I flew back to my storage unit. I put up my hiking gear that I was going to take on the Pacific Northwest, grabbed as much cold weather gear as I could, did some research on even better gear for extreme conditions, and packed it all up and flew up. And then 2 days later, I took a helicopter. So let me back up. So the main kennel for Dallas Seavey is in Talkeetna, and it's a year-round tour kennel, training and racing. And Dallas has won Iditarod 5 times. His father's won 3 times. Dallas has come in second a handful of times, and his grandfather helped start Iditarod. Iditarod is considered the toughest endurance race in the world. And that is not on the dogs, it's on the human. You could race those dogs. You could run those dogs 1,000 miles, and at the finish line, they're still pulling their harnesses, wanting to go more. You got to kind of tell them, hey, no, you've done your job. They're working dogs, amazing animals. And I didn't know anything about any of this. I had to Google Dallas Seavey. I had to Google, started watching YouTube. I watched Togo, Balto, all the movies online, 8 Below. And so in the summertime, we take 50 of the dogs and fly them up to 5,000 feet, this remote glacier. Only way in and out is helicopter. So we take all the structures up there, we take all the dogs, we build a camp, and then tourists fly in all day long on helicopters, and we take them on dog mushes. And so I showed up, and basically I was scooping poop and putting dogs on the line for other mushers to take them out. But, when I talked to Dallas, I said, I get that I'm being hired as that, but my goal is I want to learn how to be a dog musher. And he goes, I got you. We'll train you up. And by the end of the season, into the summer, you'll be a dog musher. And I think I was up there for 3 weeks when they first put me on a sled, did some training runs with the other mushers, no guests. And then one day the manager was like, hey, you're running tours today. And, my first one was pretty cool because I came back and they're like, wow, how long have you been doing this? Years? And I was like, you're the first mush I've ever done. And they're like, no way. I'm like, yep. So hid that from the guests, in the beginning. But we do. So there's 5 of us that live up there with 50 dogs, and the guests come up to 12 guests come 6 times a day. So we can do 72 people a day, which is a heroic day. Like you start 6:30 in the morning and you're probably climbing to bed at midnight. But not all days are that rough. We don't always have that many guests. Sometimes we have 30 or 40, 50, but up to 72 a day. And super remote, cell phones don't work. You have a one Garmin GPS to text down, hey, here's a food order for the next week, or if there's an emergency or anything in that nature. But pretty much it's just a really tight-knit group of 5 people living in the backcountry with 50 dogs. And then, when the guests come in, we take them on mushes. And when the guests don't come in due to weather or any other reason, we're just up there solo, all alone. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah. So Jeebs, a couple of follow-up questions on that. Sounds fascinating. Number one is, What if someone wants to do this? If someone wants to be a guest and do some dog mushing, what is the cost to participate in your operation?
So down at they do this right now we're doing it at the kennel because we have snow. And it's like $200. And in the summer, they do the exact same thing, but they do it on these bicycle cars, 4-wheeled bicycle components, and you're driving them, the dogs are pulling you. Not as much fun in my view. You're going through some mud, and you might get splashed and dusty, and I mean, it's still exciting. It's just not traditional dog mushing. And that's like 170 maybe. But the helicopter, you got to pay for the helicopter, and that's where most of the money goes. So it's $600. It's only an hour and 15 minutes, but I'd say 90, I know statistics don't mean anything, but majority of our guests, closer to 100%, say that's the coolest thing they've ever done. And they dropped a lot of money to do it, and they're getting an hour and 15 minutes, but it's so extreme and insane that most of the guests leave like, I cannot believe this is the coolest thing I ever did. But the company is AK Sled Dog Tours. I'd love to see some fellow hiker trash up there. It's pretty funny. I've met a lot of people up there that I've known from past lives, and they're like, "What are you doing here?" Like, we're in the middle of nowhere, and they show up, they get a helicopter. I'm like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And then I take them on a dog mush. So I've taken friends from Coronado, California. I took the first female 4-star flag officer, took her out, and then just some random people that, because I always try to engage with the guests and like, "Where are you from?" "Oh yeah, I've lived there." And then I took my aunt's pastor out from her church. We made that connection. I'm like, "Do you know so and so?" And he's like, "Yeah." "How do you know her?" I'm like, "That's my aunt." And then met my sister's friends, and they're like, "How do you know her?" I'm like, "That's my sister." So it's a small world. Once you get up in some remote environment, people start flying in, you find that connection. So, but I'd love to see Hiker Trash come up and visit us. We start in May, probably May 1st, and we go until about September 10th.
Okay. And in the winter season, $600 gets you the helicopter ride and an hour and 15-minute dog mush?
Yes. So that's summer. That's in the summer. So that's
summer. Okay.
September. You get to fly over glaciers. You see bear. You see moose, mountain goats on your way up, and then you just go into this super remote area, land, and you're just blown away by the scale and the beauty of it. And then there's 50 dogs and 5 crazy people that live there. And one of the highlights of the tour, so you do the mush, and then you meet dogs, and then you play with puppies, because we always have puppies up there. One of the highlights is they like to see how we live. And it's very similar through hiking, except for I have a plastic ice fishing hut. It's probably 8 by 8. Not a whole lot in it, flat board, and you got a sleeping pad and a sleeping bag and a bottle of whiskey and a bunch of extra layers of clothing. Because even though it's summer, you're up at 5,000 feet, you're getting snowstorms, you're getting wind, you're getting rain. And probably one of the most difficult parts of it is the sunny days, because of that reflection that comes off the glacier. We all have to wear special sunglasses. The care for the dog is the most important thing. And if the dog has any pink on it, every morning we're putting sunscreen on the dog. We're putting mascara under their eyes to act as eye black. And up on the glacier, they're all male dogs, just because if female went in heat, it'd cause so many problems for the tours. We couldn't handle it. So every morning, cup of coffee, you're putting sunscreen on every dog's balls. Every one of them. So the first time when I get up there, I was like, "What? I retired from the military. My job is putting sunscreen on dog balls." But it's extremely important, because that is a very sensitive area for the dogs. And that reflection coming off the sun and the glacier, if we don't do that, the dog's not going to be able to stay up there for very long.
I had questions, but you threw me off my game right there. I'm not sure what to say at this point.
I told you, I always got something for you.
Yeah. I have to imagine that if you have 50 dogs, 50 male dogs, and 5 crazy guys, all
not just guys. It's when I got up there, it was more females than males.
I apologize. 5 operators, 5 crazy operators up there.
There you go.
Things don't always go smoothly. Would that be a correct assumption? Basically,
I look at the day as not when or if something's going to go wrong, it's when something goes wrong. And every day is different. Every tour is different. Different snow conditions on the mush, make it challenging. The dogs may not get along sometimes. You got to deal with that. Personnel problems, 5 people in a remote environment, you got to really get along. Luckily, we haven't really had that. We have a lot of fun on those days when we don't have mushes. So because we're up so high, we could be socked in by weather, and down below it could be a perfect day, or vice versa. A lot of days down below they're socked in, the cloud layers at 4,000 feet, and we have a bluebird day. So we're snowboarding, we're skijoring with the dogs. We set up a volleyball court both seasons we've done this. We're playing volleyball all day. We play a lot of Catan, and there might be some drinking going on at the same time. So
great. Now, you and I have talked about type 1 fun. We've talked about type 2 fun. We've even ventured into some type 3, and I think we invented type 4 fun on one of our episodes.
I would say that living up there is definitely type 2 fun, because we've had people by the end of the season just like, I'm never coming back. I'm never doing this again. And they leave for a month, go back to their real life, and they're posting pictures about the glacier. You start seeing it on Instagram. I miss it. And then they're rehired. So a lot of people just keep coming back every year because, once you go back for a winter and you're like, man, I miss that. And then you get up there, it's like, oh, yeah.
Now, as we have gone back and forth with each other trying to set this episode up, you have relayed upon multiple occasions, Doc, I've got stories. There's been some happenings out there. Let's get down to it. What do you have for us?
So I left. So I was teaching ski and snowboard last winter in Colorado. I did that for a few years, and Dallas asked me to come back and help with Iditarod, and be part of Iditarod, because I talk about it with the guests, but I don't have any experience. So I got to be part of that, and that was really cool. And then after that ended, we had some time before the Glacier started. So I was just running tours on the snow at the kennel. And I think one good story is, the number one rule in dog mush is never let go of your sled. Because if you let go of your sled, the dogs aren't going to stop and wait on you. They're just going to keep running. And one day I was in the yard. I wasn't part of the tour. I was probably picking up poop or doing maintenance or something. And I noticed the dogs ran the wrong way and were coming at me. But the guy was a kid, probably 20, and had his mom on the sled. The way we run it is we let people mush their own sleds with a guide following and a guide behind when something goes wrong. Well, they'd turn the wrong way, and the kid just stepped off this brake, and the dog sled started coming right at me. And so the lady's screaming, "What do I do? What do I do?" And I was like, "Stay on the sled because I need weight, right? Just to keep the dogs a little slower." Well, she bails off in the snow. So now I have a dog team coming at me with no weight on it, and they're probably running 15 miles an hour. We like to train them at 9 miles an hour. All the tours are at 9 miles an hour, but they're just picking up speed, probably approaching 20. And I'd gone through the scenario in my head 100 times on how to do this. I'm like, here you go. So they come by me. I grabbed the bow and jammed on the brake and stopped right in the yard. Everybody's looking at me like, whoa. I was like, don't ever ask me to do that again, because I'm one and done on that. But then after Iditarod, there's a little bit of downtime, and we had to take some new dogs out for their first 120-mile mush. And
before you get to that, Ballz, I just had my whole mind shift, my whole perspective on this change, because I had pictured someone pays this money, they go up there, they're sitting on the sled while you're doing the dog mush, and they're just enjoying the ride. You're telling me that people you give them their own sled to do this?
So down at the kennel we do. Up on the Glacier, it's a little different. There's a sled out front that I drive with 2 passengers, but I'm towing a sled behind me where somebody's driving that sled. So they're not controlling the dog team up on the Glacier because that's too dangerous. But down in Talkeetna, like right now, we're running tours, and we let people go out on their own sled, but we put a snow machine out front to set the pace and a snow machine behind for when something goes wrong, both of us can run and handle the situation. And I've seen the craziest non-athletic people do amazing, and I've seen some shit shows, just dumping sleds, dogs running wild. I haven't had a gym membership in a couple of years. One, because there's no gyms where I live. I'm too far out and nowhere. But the main thing is every day is so physical. Like you don't need a gym. I'm in some of the best shape of my life just from everything I do all day long in the cold. So yeah, but come to Talkeetna and drive your own. And we're one of the few kennels that does that.
That's wild.
For many reasons. Like most sled riders are like, get on, we'll take you for a ride, which is cool. But we're like, no. Let's teach you how to drive and then let's go.
That's incredible. Now, how many dogs per mush team typically?
Depends. So when you're racing Iditarod, that's 14. And that's way outside of my scope. I'm comfortable with 12, but every dog you add, it's not linear. It's not like, oh, here's an extra 5 horsepower. It's exponential. And so 12 is a stretch for me. I'm really comfortable with 8 or 10 if I'm in the backcountry. But 14, especially if they're race dogs, there's a difference if they're tour dogs or race dogs. The race dogs are super athletes. And if you got 14 of them on there, that's a whole nother world. So I'm not quite there yet, but maybe in a couple years. Yeah.
Now, you've mentioned Iditarod a couple of times now. What are the details on the Iditarod? How many miles is that race, and how long does it typically take to complete?
So I'm going to go into tour mode because I talk about this every day. And a lot of what I've already said is what I tell the guests every day. So if any of your listeners come up, they're going to be like, this is the same stuff we talked about on the podcast. So Iditarod is 1,049 miles. It goes from Anchorage to Nome. Anybody can pull out their maps and see where that goes. And like I mentioned previously, one of the toughest endurance races in the world. The winner is about 9 days. And then, it's like a local marathon. Not everybody goes out to win it. Most of the people are there just to finish. That's an accomplishment. And the guy I work for, Dallas, he was the youngest to ever finish at age 18. You have to be 18 to race it. He was 18 in 1 day. So he's going to hold on to that record for a while. Youngest to win, age 25. He's got 5 wins. And this year he came last year now because we're in January, but he came in second after 9.5 days of racing, toughest conditions in the world, came in second by less than an hour. So it was a close race. We're hoping for a 6th win. Didn't happen, but we'll see what happens next year.
Fantastic. Any aspiration to do the Iditarod yourself?
I'm kind of on the fence. You have to do 3 qualifying races, and the races total about 700 miles, and you get graded on each race. So the gradings, there's only a few things you're graded on. One is sportsmanship. So if you're unkind to the judges or anyone on the course, you're going to get a failing grade. But the main thing they grade you on is how you take care of your dogs. If you're not taking care of those dogs, you fail, and that you can come in first place, and that race won't count towards a qualifier. So I'm hoping to get 1 qualifier in this year, and then I'll see what I think about that, and then we'll go from there. But the opportunity is there, but I'm not quite ready for it. It's even my daughter was like, "Oh, you're just on a sled and dogs are just pulling you." It is not that at all. There's so much that goes into it. We'd have to do this podcast for 4 hours for me to talk about it, but it's super intense, and you're not on a well-marked trail. It's like being on the Hayduke. You never know what's coming up, and you got a team of dogs dragging you down that sometimes you can't stop. And if they decide to go the wrong way, then you got to deal with that. And then you got to get them back where they're supposed to go. So there's a lot to go into it.
Nice. Now I cut you off. You're about to get into another story. So
when I went to the kennel early, I left my job in Winter Park, and one condition of me leaving early, I said, "Hey, I want to do a long dog march, not necessarily a race, but I'd only gone, I think, 10 miles before." And everybody laughed. All the people had been there for a long time laughed. Nobody gets to do that this soon. But a musher got hurt, and so I was there, and Dallas asked me, he said, "Do you want to go on a 120-mile mush with these dogs that had never done this before?" And I was like, "Yeah, let's go." So me and another musher are on a frozen river in the middle of nowhere. We did the first 60 miles of Iditarod, and then we came back. And I'd been on a race sled one time. And so I was like, all right, let's just go. Because I knew if I said no, I probably wouldn't get the opportunity again. I felt like it was a test. Like, let's see what this guy really wants to do this. Super successful. No dogs got injured. Nothing crazy. But for me, taking that step was a big step. I think if any musher happens to listen to this, they're gonna be like, "Oh yeah, whatever, 120 miles, no big deal." But at the time, that's a big deal. And then this year, I'm really stepping up. I'm doing a lot more training the race dogs for Iditarod in March, and first 126-mile mush of the season. I take off with my dogs. There's 2 mushers take off in front of me. I'm the last one to go. Take off, and as soon as we take off, my dog, we're in a parking lot. It's got snow on it, but you can't set your brakes. There's snow hooks that you set down. You can't get into the snow because it's a paved parking lot with, I don't know, an inch of snow on it. It's been plowed. And my dogs take off, take a hard ride around a truck instead of going down the trail they're supposed to, and slam me into the truck. I bounced off, and now I'm so I hit it with my right side, fall down on my left side, my sled's on its side, and they're dragging me. And all I can think of is don't let go, and fix this. And there's some old veteran Iditarod mushers in the parking lot, because this place is where they all train. And all I can hear, they're drinking beer, and all I can hear is, "Hey, buddy, you okay?" And I'm being drugged through this parking lot. And somehow, right before the trail, I righted it and rode off into the sunset. Dropped my glove, so immediately my hand starts freezing, so I had to dig in my bag for my extra. But the next morning, I definitely felt it on my left side from hitting the truck, and my right side from hitting the truck, and my left side from being drugged. But like I said, you don't let go, because you let go, those dogs they'll go 10 miles. They'll go, they're not going to stop, because all those dogs want to do is run.
Yeah, you pulled it off. I mean, you got the ship righted right at the last moment, like you planned it that way.
It wasn't pretty, and my ego was more bruised than my body, because I was in front of 2 veterans that weren't part of our group, but they're just sitting there drinking beer and just like, "Oh, look at this guy." So yeah.
Once you got the sled righted and hit the trail, did you give a casual wave over your shoulder?
No, I was holding on tight with 2 hands, like nothing else can go wrong after this. And nothing else went wrong the rest of the mush. But I started out on a very bad foot. But it happens. So
that's incredible. Now, is it? I mean, I'm gathering that your purpose up there is twofold, at least twofold. One is you're providing sledding opportunities for tourists or for guests, and the other is you're training dogs for mushing and for possibly the Iditarod.
Correct. So we're a full service kennel. So every day we have tours that come in, and we take them on dog mushes, and every day we're training dogs. So that's the challenge, is come up with a plan of how you get the tours done to make money, because feeding 110 dogs is extremely expensive. How you do tours, and then how you fit training in as well. So if you do a 50-mile mush, that's 7.5 hours, with an hour planning before it and probably 30 minutes to an hour after it. So it's a full day in addition to a full day of tours. So the days can go long. But right now we've kind of got it where we're managing both, and the days aren't going too long. But some days it's just like, right, you guys do tours first, and then you guys go, guys and girls, go out and mush. So but we got a nice tight-knit team at the kennel, and we're crushing it. So.
And you said earlier that you're graded highest on some of these qualifying races for how well you take care of the dogs. And I know there's an element, a large element of dog care in your role, because we've kind of had crossed wires, or have been able to been unable to connect, because you've had to take care of a dog that was suffering in some way or was sick in some way. What tell us a little bit about
that. Flip stomach. It's not common, but it's happened. So we have protocols in place that when you feed, most of the dogs eat immediately. Well, actually, all the dogs eat immediately. And if they don't, all right, they're on the watch list. And then you feed them dinner and they don't eat again, okay, we might have a problem. And then by that next morning's meal, if they're not eating and if they're not pooping, there's either a blockage or a flip stomach. And we've had a couple of those, and immediately rush them to the vet, emergency surgery, and those dogs recover super fast. It's not any negligence on anybody's part. It's just, everybody's had that golden retriever eats a sock, and that happens. These dogs are much sturdier than a golden retriever or any house pet, but we occasionally get those problems. and we're always watching that.
Yeah, and there's no vet clinic up on the glacier. I mean, this taking a dog to get care, it's an involved effort.
So last summer I did 2 trips down with a dog in my lap on a helicopter. Got down to my truck, put him in my truck, rushed him to the vet. I'm like, hey, here we go. This is what I've seen, and then it's like, and the first one I did, the vet comes out immediately. They did an X-ray, and they're like, well, there's a rock blocking them. We're gonna have to come up. I'm like, well, that's impossible. I live on a glacier. That's not a rock. It's something else. And the vet's like, no, that's a rock. But what had happened is the dog had eaten a rock during the summer or early, like in the spring, and it just took months for it to block everything up. So yeah, I'm learning a lot about dog care, and that's kind of the focus of not just our kennel, but also Iditarod and any dog mushing, is the dog care. And we have had guests come in, oh, this is cruel. But I think after they do our tour for an hour or two, they see the bond that all the mushers have with the dogs, all the dog care we do. And they also see that these dogs only want 3 things in life. They want to run, they want our love and affection, and they want to eat. If you give them those 3 things, they're the best dogs in the world.
And what is the average age of the dogs that you mush with? And is there a retirement age?
Yeah. So we have dogs at the kennel ranging from 1 week to 14 years. So there is a process. The puppies, they just get played with. All the guests come in, get to hold puppies, get pictures, and that's the socialization of the dog. And then the yearlings, we run them, we train them like 20 miles a day, every other day. And they're wild, they're crazy, they don't know what they're doing. And then you have the 2-year-olds that may do some races this year, like 100 miles, 200 miles, maybe even 300 if they're, advanced or if they're more mature. And then the race dogs are anywhere from 4 to about 8 years old. That's the race team. So the yard is kind of divided up in those groups. And then you have the tour dogs. The tour dogs are generally either dogs that aren't going to make the race team, but they still want to run, or they're older dogs that have retired, not retired, but moved off the race team, but they still want to run and can provide like good leadership skills for all the other dogs. And then around 9 or 10, the dogs start losing that enthusiasm to run, and they become house dogs. So at the kennel, when the guests walk in, there's 10 dogs all over the couch, just retired. You let them out when they want to go. So it's more their house than anyone else's house. And the guests love it because all the dogs are like retired champions, and they're just laying around, getting pet, living their best life. And because the Alaskan Husky is a mutt breed, they typically live like 16 to 20 years. So half their life they're mushing, and half their life they're just, 3 things usually happen when a dog retires. They either go into the house and become house dogs, or someone like me will adopt them. So all the mushers have dogs, except for myself. I don't yet because I don't know where I'm going. I don't want to take on that responsibility. Or there's a foundation that places the dogs with the right person. I like to say if you have an office job in New York City and working 16 hours a day, an Alaskan Husky is not for you. But for all the people I see hiking with their couch dog, bad idea. You take Alaskan Husky, they would crush any trail out there. Definitely.
Even the Hayduke.
Yeah, but you'd have to lower them down a lot. So you'd have to have some thicker, line to lower them down. But yeah, like AT, PCT, you see a lot of people with dogs. A lot of times dogs that shouldn't be out there. But the Alaskan Husky would make the perfect hiking companion, except for when it gets hot.
Right. All right. Hey, before we get to the ending segments of the episode, do you have another story in reserve? Something amazing that's happened out there, unbelievable?
Well, I'd like to do a PSA real quick. If anybody's listened this long to me talk about this and still interested, we are looking for a couple of people to hire. So contact me on Instagram at hiking_ginger_B. And I think through hikers would find this lifestyle right up their alley. But, we're looking for some people. You got to work hard, long hours, long work, but it's type 2 fun. Like one of the coolest things you'll ever do in your life.
Man, you went from pooper scooper to director of HR. I mean, that's a meteoric rise right there.
Yeah. Well, hey, we need people, so I'm trying to create the best team we can have up there.
Hey, you know who I'm talking to tomorrow morning?
Who's that?
I'm talking to Garmeyer. I'll let him know.
Are you really?
There's an opening. Yeah.
All right. Tell him come on up. As long as he's not afraid of hard work.
I don't think so. That guy's up for anything.
Sounds good.
All right. Hey, Ballz, you know where we are?
Yeah, hang on. No. Tell me.
The pro tip insight of the week.
We're at that time of the episode where you get to share some trail wisdom or maybe some mushing wisdom with our listeners to make their next outdoor experience even better.
All right. I think I'm going to go with survival recommendations in extreme environments because Alaska is extreme, and this will pertain to anybody doing a thru hike as well. Be ready for the weather to change and have the right gear. You know, in my truck in Alaska, I have survival gear that I just travel with because I made a mistake. I came down to the lower 48 a couple months ago, and I flew back to Alaska. I didn't have layers on. I had my tennis shoes, my hiking shoes on. And as soon as I stepped out of the airport, I was like, oh, I made a mistake. And then if my truck breaks down on the way home, that's a problem. So I think always have that in mind. Like you can't keep water in your truck because it's going to freeze solid, but you can keep fire starter, extra fuel, food, and layers of clothing. Like always be ready for the worst to happen because you never know what that weather's going to do.
Well said, sir. Well said. And, when we talked about type 4 fun in your previous episode, I think that referred to the Barkley marathons. Any change in perspective on that? As maybe a future challenge for you?
So I'm not running up in Alaska. Obviously, the snow's too deep, and I'm not going to run. I did go on a 6-mile run yesterday, though, and still got some fitness, so I'm feeling good about that. But no, I have no desire to do the Barkley. Zero.
All right, just checking in. Just want to see.
You'll be the first to know if I ever go down that route.
Fantastic. All right, so there you have it. That's it. This episode is just about in the books. Hope our listeners enjoyed our time with Ginger Ballz. Want to thank him for joining us this week. Ben, how can our listeners keep up with you on social media? Where can they find updates on your latest adventures? Maybe see some of those awesome pictures of the snot running down, the frozen snot running down your beard.
Yeah. Instagram is the best one at hiking_ginger_B. But yeah, if anybody has questions on Hayduke or if you need a job up in Alaska, we're looking for like 1 or 2 people. So reach out. Let's talk.
Okay. Remember to check out the pod on social media as well. We are on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and yes, I'm still on TikTok, even though you said that's
oh my goodness,
16-year-old girls. And if you have comments or clips you want to share, you can send it to me at johnfreakinmuir@gmail.com. Oh, that didn't come through, did it? Oh, I'm ill prepared. Hang on, let me try that again. I'll have to edit this part.
All right.
The Adventure Media Recommendation.
And Ginger Ballz, before we get going here, I'm also looking to you to share a recommendation for a book, a movie, documentary, some kind of adventure media to keep our listeners connected to the outdoors. We call this our Adventure Media Recommendation. Any recommendations you have for us?
Well, going back to YouTube, go down that dog mushing Iditarod rabbit hole. See what it's about. I think hikers would definitely appreciate that. And, a lot of adventure out there, dog mushing.
Okay, I'll have to check that out, see what it's all about, see what you've been going through the last year and a half.
What have we not asked you?
And before we wrap things up, just one more segment called What Have I Not Asked You That You're Dying to Tell Us About? What did we miss tonight?
What am I doing next?
What are you doing next, Ben?
I don't know, but it's going to be something awesome. I haven't, just letting life take me where it goes. And, once opportunity arises, I'm going to jump on it, and I'll be doing something completely different than dog mushing.
Generally on the "What have we not asked you" segment, people, that's something they want to tell us about. So when you say you didn't ask me what's next, and I asked you what's next, and you say, well, I don't know. I mean, that's kind of a change in pace for us. That's nice.
All right. Well, there you go. I'm always giving you the unexpected.
That's right. Unique. All right. Hey, that is a wrap from the John Freaking Muir studio. Any shout outs to friends and family, Ben?
Yeah. Scrapbook, Lil Skittle, all the other hikers that I follow that I haven't met yet, Jeff Garmeyer, all those guys.
Do you have a favorite dog?
No, so you're not supposed to have a favorite dog. However, there's a couple that once they reach retirement age, I'm definitely going to adopt them. So shout out to Ace.
Ace. Nice.
Yeah. I'll send you a picture you can post before this podcast comes with me and Ace.
Perfect. Let's take a look at Ace. All right. Hey, thank you for tuning in. Always remember, the trail is the trail. Doesn't care if you want to go downhill. Doesn't care if it's almost dark and you're looking for a campsite. It doesn't even care if you spent the morning spreading sunscreen on the balls of your mush team. The trail is the trail. Embrace the suck.